Hi, this is Damien from AtHope, and I am an axiological atheist, which can be understood simply as a value theory or a value science atheist. Or it can be understood as I am an axiologist, value theorist, and I'm also an atheist. And I'm here with a guest, and we're going to talk about kindness, compassion, self-kindness, and self-compassion. All right? Can you go ahead and tell us who you are and tell us a little bit about you?
This is Terrell. I'm sorry. Should I cover what I covered before? I'm sorry.
Yeah, just tell us about you. I don't know what other video you have, so let's just everyone's fresh and new. Tell us about you.
My name is Terrell. I'm a social worker here in University, and I have a lot of passion for self-compassion. I'm my best friend, and we've been worthwhile. I appreciate what we have, and it's really changed my life. Ultimately, when we're self-compassionate, more kind to ourselves, we're filled with abundance, we can pass on to other people. When we're filled up with anxiety, depression, rumination, anger, frustration, shame, guilt, longing, scarcity, we're self-absorbed. I don't judge people who are like this, but it takes away from our ability to be in the middle. A lot of people think it's selfish to be self-compassionate, but it's actually very freeing. We owe it to everybody to be self-compassionate, even if we don't deserve it. Of course, when we fill ourselves with abundance of happiness, goodwill, positive energy, naturally it overflows. Naturally we want to give it. We're not self-absorbing. We're able to feel the movement when we're centered. When we're kind to ourselves, it fills us up. It's almost like you can imagine if your pantry is so filled with good stuff, it's falling off the shelves.
Exactly.
That's how we want to be in life.
Right.
Not everybody has a great day every day. But we go to the supermarket, when we interact with people, whether we're friends and family and loved ones, but we're overflowing with goodwill, love, and compassion. Not only do we feel happier, get back great around us, and people love that energy. People want to be around us. It's sad that angry, depressed people drive people away. They crave the very thing. They crave human connection.
Oh yeah.
Because of their negative energy, people don't want to be around.
Yeah, and I think that, well, in general, we're social beings. I mean, evolutionarily, we did better in a sense even than Neanderthals simply because of our social bonding. I mean, if you look at the Neanderthal groupings, I mean, they have, like 15, 30, and then you see humans who were like 50, 100, 200, 300. I mean, we had a larger, ability, it seems, to do social cohesion on a larger scale. In other words, like, everyone in a sense has familial, impressions and family bonding, persuasions. But how do you take that and move it larger? That's something that I think is a skill that you're talking about. Because I think when you really get grounded in self, for me at least, and I start looking at other people and seeing the self that I am in them, it helps me also to have that same kind of compassion for what's going on with them.
Without a doubt, it is interesting because people sometimes say through evolution we've had to develop fight, flight, the ability to protect ourselves, etc. But obviously, human beings 100,000 years ago probably survived because we could be carrying and living in a path that
absolutely.
We killed each other off years ago. It's fascinating to me that after all these years of evolution, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of generations, people still don't instinctively behave in a kind, loving way, because that's what we need to continue the species.
Oh, well, and even if, let's just say that we could continue with war. Is that really preferable? I mean, is that like the goal? I mean, if you laid out and you said, here's war, even to people that are pro-war, here's a life of never-ending war, or here's peace. I mean, I would imagine most sane people would be like, yeah, that peace is a lot better. Because, I mean, just think, the peace is a lot better, I'm saying, than war. Even someone, I was just saying, even someone who could be pro-war, at some point, don't they have loved ones? Most people. And like you were talking about, that goes back to the bonding. And see, when the bonding we can find, for me, the area of looking and seeing the other, like I was saying, they care about more than likely their own family. Even if you're pro-war, you don't want your children to be tortured and die. So, I mean, even if you're pro-war, you still want safety. And I always think, to me, it really comes down to two main things that are human persuasions. It's that need for safety and comfort. You can reduce most things to fit in that. And this is why I think it's important. It's a balance. If you have all comfort, let's say you're a drug addict, or a drug dealer, a drug dealer. You're a drug dealer, super wealthy, tons of money. You have lots of comfort, but no safety. Everyone's trying to kill you. The government's after you. Everyone's trying to take you over corporately, whatever, in the gang structure. So you have a lot of comfort, but no safety. So I realized, yeah, comfort without safety, that's not living. And then the same thing, you could have all the safety. Let's just say you're in prison.
Stuff in your room with 15 guns.
Or you're in prison, locked in a cell by yourself. In a sense, you have safety, but that's not comfort. That's not well-being. And I agree with you. If you're so terrified you feel you need to have 17 guns, you're not living in comfort and safety. You're living in terror. And to me, if you live in terror, then your life expresses that. And that's why I try to live in peace and love, like your book talks about.
And people so often say that violence is natural. Look at people now, animals now. The reality is most animals don't kill unless they're hungry. And people lived apparently mostly in Europe and other Africa for generations with no conflict. We've never had armed conflict in Canada. There are families where people don't yell and scream. To me, the natural state of order is humanity and love and care, and we wouldn't have survived this long. Freud said life is all about love and sex and aggression. Sex and aggression. And I have a friend who's a psychoanalyst, and I said, haven't we evolved beyond, sex is fine, but haven't we evolved beyond aggression in the last 100,000 years? Right. So what's wrong with a little bit of aggression? Well, we could do better than that as human beings. And you're right, that's why people survive. Because we had to be cooperative.
Well, and I think you brought up an interesting thing about sex. In fact, someone just asked me yesterday, because I'm a very public atheist, and I'm very public about supporting gay rights and supporting, trans rights and women. Anyways, this guy said to me, well, Damien, what's the evolutionary benefit of homosexuality or bisexuality? And I said, well, the same as it is for all sexuality, bonding. Bonding. Bonding is
more conservative than two men or two women loving each other. What's more family, or what's more conservative than that?
Exactly.
Having a good, loving, kind relationship. It's more inherently conservative. That's the cohesion. That's the cohesion that's kept us together.
Well, and what's really interesting to me too, I do a lot of study in archaeology, especially in prehistory. I love prehistory. That's my favorite, because I want to know, because I feel like history at a certain point really started, in other words, culture started invading who a human was. So it's hard to me, like an anthropological look, how it's hard to look at a person and not see culture all over it. In other words, they're blind to this backpack of culture they carry around with them. But I'm not. And I know that what were we like in a sense when we had less impressive culture on us? Or was culture always oppressive? Was it always this thing that wasn't, in a sense, allowing us to be who we are? And so I wanted to look back, and I was very amazed that I thought war would have been just a natural trait for humans. You know what I'm saying? Like, as far as we look back, just nothing but war. But that's not true. In fact, Neanderthals seem to care for elderly. So did our arcane humans at 200,000 and 100,000. You start seeing that and then 50,000. What's interesting is it's not until 10,000 that you really have war.
Absolutely.
So if you have, it could be 300,000 to 200,000 years of human history, but only this little tiny portion of 10,000 years we've even really, in a sense, involved ourselves in war. First, maybe go, why? Is it humans? Is it just that we finally evolved this sick trait? Well, I don't think so. I think it really has to do with comfort and safety. And you see this. You see that the more the resources are depleted, the more that people get aggressive. This is also why I believe in being an anarchist and going out there. And what I mean by that is that I see the whole world is my human people. I don't see borders. Borders are lines that humans have drawn, and they keep redrawing them. And because I see that the quality is actually not the lines; it's the people inside of it. So it's not, and I have a problem because like some people, they'll go, well, that's a Canadian, so they care less, or that's a, Mexican, or that's a, European, or that's an American, or whatever. Everybody has like these, like, it's okay to not care for our fellow humans simply because they're across some line that humans draw it imaginary.
We have to be constantly challenging our beliefs. For instance, every single person I've worked with or known is transgender. They said the exact same thing. Why does gender have to be duality? Colors are a duality.
Right.
Race and culture are a duality. My wife does a project where she has people take their DNA and matches that against how they see themselves racially and culturally. Too often don't.
That's cool.
You can have fraternal twins that still have differences.
Right.
When it comes to gender, we assume you're a man or you're a woman.
Right.
Well, that's completely illogical. There's all variations on the scale. There's all different ways to look at that. And it's different in a sexuality, to gender identity. But why can't it be flowing out? It's not even a continuum. A good friend of mine says it's a sphere. My friend Stephanie says it's a sphere. It's going out in all different directions. But we lock ourselves into these belief systems. It's not anything.
Yeah.
Aggression. So part of my book on self-compassion talks about challenging our belief systems. And one of the major things I do with my clients and myself is, if they seem to be not functioning well in some area of their life, I say, what's the belief system behind that? Is it perfectionism? Is it your worth is wrapped up in your work or your appearance or how people perceive you? And then we brainstorm more functional beliefs. Well, I'm not the first person to talk about this, but I think as a therapist, I'm a little more direct in saying to people, try this belief. Try the belief on that you're worth and how much money you make. Try the belief on that you can accept yourself even if
that sounds almost like REBT, like rational emotive behavioral therapy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But it's more than just positive self-talk. It is. It's cognitive therapy. But that's exactly what it is. I have a cognitive background. Sure. But it's a pretty radical thing to say to people flat out, can you try this belief system on? I mean, it sounds radical, but they often say to me, well, that's so hard to change beliefs. But I say, well, it's harder to hold on to a belief that's not working. For instance, earlier, you showed me the former clip of the video, and I thought I looked kind of goofy. It just showed my head. Right. Well, I immediately fell in love with self-consciousness. My God, what are people going to think? Right. Well, that's part of ego. It's probably one of the good questions. It's very hardwired into us.
Oh, yes.
In a certain way. But we also love our vulnerabilities.
Yes.
We also love, if I came on the show and I said, I've never had a problem, I'm so perfect, everybody think like, what a jerk.
Yeah.
Now, we don't want to overdo our vulnerabilities.
Correct.
We want to go into a Wawa and knock everything full. I don't know if you have Wawas out in Seattle, but we don't want to make a fool of ourselves in public in a way that's harmful to others.
Right.
But it's interesting. It's society and social construction. We have to look at certain ways, but to challenge our beliefs and to constantly challenge our belief systems. We can always outgrow ourselves. And that's the unmanifested. That's what's not. And to me, that's part of a lot of self-compassion is, what haven't we discovered about ourselves, our authentic self? Now, to live in that world of where we're constantly reach our passions. Like you're living out your life right now in a passionate way.
Yes,
you have these why do you think it's so hard for people to challenge their belief systems? So many people box themselves in.
Well, I think that some of it is culture and their family. I mean, families, depending on where you're at, too. I mean, let's think of an Asian family trying to go against the family. They would demoralize you, or you would feel demoralized because you've already been primed and pre-programmed by their indoctrination or society, by the pushing of values. So because this has already happened, you think is you. It's not totally you. It's you plus XXY, whatever, all kinds of things. And so to me, we talk about authentic self. To me, it's just allowing yourself to be, to feel scared, to feel hopeful, to have feelings. I think that we're so afraid of feeling that we actually stop instead of growing from feelings. And you asked what it would do. I learn to grow from feelings. Learn to just bathe in. I remember my wife one time. She said, I don't want to cry. And I said, feel free to cry. I always tell people, feel free to cry. There's only glory in crying to me, because there should never be shame, because all you're doing is showing that your humanity. Every time that we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, that is a doorway into our humanity to me. We actually see the, in a sense, a real thing. So I told her, go ahead and cry. And she says, well, if I cry, if I start, I won't ever stop. And I said,
I do that all the time.
Okay. And then what? Let's just assume. But I feel like the miracle question, like they do, you know, in solution-focused behavioral therapy. Well, if you could do anything and everything would be solved, what do you think would take to do that? You know, what?
So we can be completely authentic, and as you say, as long as we don't hurt anybody else, as long as we're not destructive of the planet, as long as we don't behave in ways that are unfair or narcissistic or lack compassion, we're completely free. And we love people. Muhammad Ali getting up there saying, I'm the greatest.
Yeah.
He's a little full of himself. People love his authenticity and his vulnerability. You know, in a sense,
True.
we love those people.
True.
Who wants to be around the person that just tries to conform to everything? You know, as long as they don't cross over the line too much. But
Yes.
even then, sometimes they become characters of themselves.
True.
But again, you don't want to do anything dangerous, but we love authenticity. You know, but we shove it down. You know, in school, we shut it down. The kid that's free-spirited is often put down, or maybe they have ADD and you won't give them medication. Yeah, sure, they may need some medication. But we're so afraid of being our authentic self. Generally, you know, most of us are pretty authentic. And in teenage years, all the societal projections. How many 9-year-old girls are doing cartwheels and laughing and love themselves, and they get to be 12, and all of a sudden they're, be like. So for girls, I think it's more how you look. For boys, it's the man code. Are you manly enough?
Right.
We all follow expectations and pressures. So when I ask my clients, who are you outside of all your roles? They just look at me. They've lost the sense of who they really are. That's the authentic self. That's who we are at our most basic level. And I really think happiness and peace are largely dependent on how authentic can we be? Can we take risks and challenge our beliefs? Can we live in that? But why do you think it's so hard? Is it society? You know, that whole Asian collectivistic thing is protected in some ways. It's hierarchical.
Right. So how do you go against it? Well, to me, you have to instill new values, and you have to have them see the old values in a new way. That's why that's what I try to do all the time is basically help people reconstruct things into a positive mindset. Because actually, the belief that we can't change is flawed. We change always. Like I said, I feel like all we're doing is like sand on the bottom of the ocean. We're just
every 7 years, all of our cells change.
I'm just saying that this thought that we're fixed or we cannot change. Because I hear all the time, well, I'm just this way. Yeah, so am I. And so I can't stop my past and what I've been through. But does that mean that it has to be somehow a mirror that I kind of live by? Why?
And people usually, unfortunately, only change under the gun. A guy drinks and smokes and eats McDonald's and has quadruple bypass surgery and comes out and becomes healthier. Or a guy doesn't treat his wife well and she gets out and back to normal. People often change in a crisis.
Oh, yeah.
I would certainly agree. Why can't we move towards what we want, not out of fear, but out of hope, out of love, out of care, of wanting to be our best self? We don't need to beat up on ourselves. We shouldn't need trauma. We shouldn't need to have a quadruple bypass surgery to start going.
Exactly.
What do we need? We're driven by fear.
Exactly.
We're driven by the sense of what some terrible things could happen. Some people that have been through trauma often live in the state of hypervigilance that they think they need to protect themselves. And maybe they needed the hypervigilance as a kid to not be abused. Maybe they need to be aggressive or scream or yell. They don't need that as an adult. So
Right.
we carry around all this anxiety and fear and negative energy. And I say to my clients, what are you afraid would happen if you became peaceful and happy? And I usually say something terrible might happen. They feel as if they need their hypervigilance to protect them. But they don't. They just live with a lot of emotion.
Right, so what you're doing is the same thing I'm doing in a sense. If I were to boil down what I'm doing and make it simpler to understand, my goal is to actually impart emotional intelligence training in everything that I do. How's that?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what in a sense you're talking about, because you're talking about an emotional regulation, because emotional intelligence to me is both external and internal. And the fact that how I'm emotionally intelligent helps me regulate me. It helps me figure out me.
Model it. Every single time you do that, you model. You'd be a great therapist or a coach. I mean, you've got great ideas, you know.
That actually, my goal, if I wouldn't have done what I'm doing now, was actually, if I would have stayed in psychology, was to make my own form of therapy. Because I'm more a theorist. I'm the kind of person that's a trainer of counselors who then go counsel people. If I were to do counseling, it would be group counseling. I'm not as, in other words, I like to talk to people and then I like to move on. I don't like to keep talking about the same things. I would be better as an interventionist, getting in, shocking, helping, motivating, and then move on to the next person. It's probably because of my abuse and being like a high-functioning sociopath. I score like we did. High-functioning sociopath, what I mean is that my tendency is to not care, to be violent, to be egocentric, to be arrogant, to be self-absorbed. That's my nature now because of abuse, and to actually see the world in very negative, valueless expression to me. So because of my abuse, I mean, I have my tailbone was broken with a 2x4 being beaten. I mean, I've been starved. I've been, and then in my environment, I was shot at. I've been stabbed. I was jumped at 13 on a school field trip. I mean, I lived in gangland. So, I mean,
that's such a powerful story.
I was a crack addict. I was, an alcoholic. I had liver failure at 17. I had my heart stop at 15. I mean, like I said, I come from a lot of stuff. So I had sexual abuse. I had pretty much I even had medical neglect where I cracked my head open and my dad put an ace bandage, didn't even take me to hospital. I mean, I lived under a lot of oppression and violence. And like I said, so it's hard because it's made me kind of feel disconnected from the world. I feel more connected now that I've really worked on myself. What's that?
Develop strategy to spot.
Correct. Correct. So I see it as a form of it. I have a form of it in a sense, PTSD. I see it just an extreme version in a sense. Like I think that people that get DID or what people used to call multiple personality disorder, dissociation identity disorder, people that have that too, I think to me personally, it's a form of PTSD. It's just like an extreme version that was the coping strategy in a sense. And I think that when I say high-functioning sociopath, in other words, sociopaths, I know from research that I've done investigation on because I care about science. So I've done research of 50% of people that are sociopaths have had extreme violence as a child.
Yes, without it.
So, and only 10% of psychopaths. So I'm not a psychopath. In other words, I wasn't born with a mental problem of not caring or being able to shut it off. It's just from being bombarded, until, probably 18 or whatever, just nothing but toxic stuff. It was very, empathy removing. How's that? So I got to the place where empathy was so beaten down and killed. I always talk to people, it reminds me, I look into the eyes of a child and I see what I can't ever get again, which is innocence. My innocence was robbed and abused at a level so deep for me that I just lost it. But what I've found is everything lost can also be found. So I realized that actually what I had done, and I think people that do DID kind of do this too, I had actually in a sense saved that little part in me and then made myself sociopath and everything else. So in a sense.
Well, but for a moment, it's a very powerful story. What's the moment of revelation or epiphany? What was the beginning of this process? Would you reach a part where there was no?
Oh, there was definitely so I ended up because I was so violent, I was getting problems with that issue there, getting in trouble all the time, and I had been caught at school with a gun. I mean, I cut a kid across the chest with a knife. I mean, I was just out of control. And I went to school completely high on LSD. I took 7 hits of LSD and went to school. I was so high, I didn't even know I was at school. I was just out of it. Anyways, so of course the school knew and they were just sick of me. And I also got kicked out of high school for punching a person, beating up a person, and then punching them in the principal's office in front of their dad. I was ready to take the dad on. I just had so much anger and violence. I got sent to a rehab because of being intoxicated, and they wanted me to be locked down. Well, then of course I was still violent, so I did violence to my roommate. I beat them up. I wrapped a blanket around their head and punched them to wake them up in the morning because they had woke me up too early. And so I returned the favor, but through my violence. But it was, so I just to give you an idea, I don't glorify violence. I hate it. And I'm shameful for what I did. Well, I'm just giving you the background so you understand how amazing it is that I am who I am now. So it's anyways, I got to this point. Well, so I got to this point where all of a sudden, I had done that, right? So they had me on, in a sense, homicidal awareness instead of suicidal. They were afraid I was going to hurt people all the time. So they told me that they wanted to send me to a 72-hour lockdown to Brea Psych in California, to a psych ward, 72-hour locked on a gurney, because I was just so out of control. And this feminist therapist woman, there was like a whole group of people, right? And everybody kept coming at me. And I'm the kind of person that I now know that when people come at me super hard, I immediately ready to fight. Right. But if you come at me with kindness, then I don't fight you. It's so I now know that. But so she came at me with just utter kindness and understanding, and she's like, no one's ever listened to you, and I see how hurting you are and how you want to do the right thing and you don't even know how, and I just broke down. I was like, oh, what is this? What is this that's happening? This is kindness? What? I don't even deserve this.
Feel scary or weird?
It felt weird. It felt very weird because I had a life of pain, and to have just utter kindness, and especially to me, I did not deserve. It just touched me. I was like, how does someone do that? How are they kind even when you're not? What? I want that. I want to be like that. I want to do what she's doing to me. I want to do this to someone else. I want to inspire the world with kindness. It just when being treated like that, I just went, okay, that's the way to treat people. That's what I want to do. I want to try to impact someone's life. I want to look past what's going on, what they're doing. I want to be genuine. She was real with me. She was open with me. She was totally said, this is what I'm doing. This is the whole staff. They want to send you away. I believe in you. I don't know how to tell people, man. After that time, it made me start looking into understanding feminist therapy, because I started researching more into it. Yeah, and not right at that moment, but a little bit later. But anyway, but it started changing my whole view that my way of the world, I realized, did not work. I mean, all it was producing, I was just rationally thinking, even from a selfish place. I'm rationally thinking, wait a minute. The way I'm working is not working for me. I am I'm in rehab. I'm almost going to jail. I mean, this way is not working for me. I don't know how else to go. So I realized that I need a new way, and this seems like the way. It seems like a way to really be open. It rocked my world, and it just got me to start thinking. And then also, like I said too, I'm an anarchist, and that for me, it's from a compassionate place. First off, it's three main things to me. First off is the fact that genetically, in a sense, we're all human, we're all connected. So it's hard for me now, because I realize this, to look at other humans and not go, that's a fellow dignity being. That is someone who's like me. The whole planet, everybody. I've gone to Mexico and helped out children, and I want to do more. I want to protect the world, help the world. I mean, I feel for everyone. It changes my whole mindset about how I do things. Then the second thing it goes close to that. So all humans are connected. Then the next thing I realize is no one owns the earth. Nobody. You don't, in a sense, own land. You dominate it. You have coercive control over it. But in a sense, because like if I ask you, well, how do you say you own it? Well, I bought it. You bought it from who? I bought it from this person. Who they buy it from? Eventually, if you reduce it, nobody bought it from anybody. They just took it. Right. And so to me, that changes how I see borders. Not that you can't have borders. Not even that I don't say I believe in people's having a right to property. But it makes me realize that it's a fantasy. That this is something that humans have created. We really should be sharing resources, because that's the real reality, is that we all are part of this earth. There's none of us that in a sense own more or should own more, to me, parts of it, because in a sense it should be communal, because that's the real reality at the core. So I mean that changes. Even this is what I was going to say too. It reminds me of the rape thing. People go, that sounds like fantasy world. Yeah, it would be nice to get rid of all rape too. That sounds like fantasy world, but shouldn't we try? And tell me that that's not an ethical goal. Is it not an ethical goal for me to see all humans as important? Is it not how is that unethical? Just like I say to me too, that it's amazing how people are so afraid of freedom. And if you are, then why do you trust people with power? If you can't trust people with freedom, it's bizarre to me how trusting people are when other people have power. If you can't even trust them with freedom.
Well, that's one of the most powerful, inspiring stories I've heard, and that it's so beautiful. I mean, wow! I mean, it's the power of kindness. And so many times when I tell my clients they're worthy and lovable, they don't believe me. They're threatened by it. They're scared by it. I've had clients say to me, "It's a fantasy land." I had a woman say, "I read your book and I read the words that didn't make any sense." Mm. You know, we're raised in a culture where people feel like they have to get up for themselves. They feel like they're right here. But your message, that's one of the most powerful messages, inspirational stories. If you've been there, you've walked the walk. So the fact that you've gotten to this point shows the power of everything you and I believe in.
Oh, absolutely.
The power of taking a hard look at ourselves, and most importantly, the possibility of redemption.
Oh, totally.
The possibility of redefining ourselves.
Yes.
Being a different thing. And that's the stories as old as the hills. How many fables, how many myths, the story, we can redo ourselves. We go, Ebenezer Scrooge, one of my favorite movies, you know, we can do that.
Yeah.
How do we do that? We see our past, we see our mistakes, we see the future we don't want. We have a mirror put up again. So many people are afraid to look at themselves honestly. That's why feedback is so helpful. But look at the rewards that you've gotten. You're living a highly successful, passionate, authentic life, doing things you believe in your
yes.
life. You really lived it out. And you could probably have 20 different careers based on what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
You go in and work with delinquents and people. It's such a powerful story. They can change too.
Oh, and like I said, I think that's why I tell people too that when I do atheist activism, I tell them, you know what the most important thing about it is? It's not the things I know, it's the kindness. I'm telling you, care and kindness to me opens up people's minds of willing to change. I know for a fact because it changed me. Care and kindness is exactly what changed me. It wasn't threats of jail. It wasn't threats of going to the lockdown. It was the kindness that actually broke me. Not said broken, but helped me to change. So I feel like all the time people, when they hear me talk about kindness, think, oh, like it's some kind of unnecessary thing, like it's a throwaway. I mean, if you could do it, great, but like it's not important. No, wrong. Kindness is vital to life. Period. End of story.
Just a lot of time. After we had my son a couple of years, he was doing some acting out, he was angry. I said to him one day, "Buddy, are you testing this out to see if we're still going to love and care about you?" He said something like that.
Yeah.
I said, "No, you've developed this as a coping strategy to test out." I said, "You need to do it anyway. We love you. You know, I said, you can burn the house down, we're still going to love you." You know, and that was it. It took a couple of years, but he had this hypervigilance, this protection. It was like healing a wounded bone that took like 6 years.
Yeah.
But it was simply enveloping him. It was buying his favorite foods. It was stroking his back of them. And like he used to rub his feet. It was just project. That's right. What I used to imagine when he was a kid, that when he would be angry at me, I imagined like a pillow absorbing the ball. Like it just didn't get to me anymore. But it's love and kindness. That's the truest thing like ever said in the history of the world. And that's why we've survived as a species. Because kindness, you know, is just much greater than evil, and you know, and meanness. And but again, as you say, it's amazing people think kindness is evil. But it's interesting for you. I would think kindness would feel pretty threatening if you develop some of these behaviors to protect us.
Oh, well, and kindness also, not now, but at first felt odd because to me, what I felt when I started was I felt like the world was plastic. What I mean by that is, in a sense, everything was fake. All of your guys' happiness, all of your smiles, all of your fears. It was just all a bunch of nonsense. I got all the way I can describe it was just I felt like the world was just a bunch of nonsense, just totally and utter fake. Do whatever made me feel good, totally selfish. But it's really that's because like I'm an axiology. That's because I had an inaccurate value structure. I didn't know how to assess value. I didn't know how to utilize value.
But it took, and I only have a couple minutes. I have a client coming in a minute.
Okay.
But it's a connection. You could have read every book. Meditated, gone to the Himalaya Mountains. Clearly, you wouldn't have had this wonderful epiphany changing your life than the simple human. That's all. I mean, it's so simple. When we don't get that as kids, we can find other adults who love and validate us.
Yes.
But so many of my clients will never find adults who can love them like their parents should love them.
True.
They exhaust their partners, friends, and family with this emotional neediness.
Right.
And they constantly burn people out. And that's where I come back to the self-compassion. I say to people, can you give yourself the love and care you wish you'd gotten? I had a client years ago who had a very difficult childhood, and she had a dream. She had a very abusive husband. She had a dream. She was an egg in a nest, waiting for her mother or her father to come sit on her.
Yeah.
Well, you don't need to be a trained therapist to figure out what's going on. I said to her, how do you want this person to take care of you? What do you need? And she said, I need some comfort. Well, can you buy yourself a comforter? I need safety. Can you figure out how to be safe? I don't mean to sound dramatic. It took her a couple of months.
Yeah.
She started putting herself up with a love. Because adult relationships aren't designed to fill all your childhood needs. If you look to your wife,
true.
all your other needs,
Very true. I agree.
Unless your wife was a saintly person, she has her own stuff.
Right.
And that's where the self-compassion comes in. We can give ourselves the love. But it still took this wonderful woman to set that up. She had to model. She had to demonstrate it. She had to give you permission to love yourself.
Well, I like what you said about that. I would make one point, though. I think that I have other compassion, too, because I know that, I know sometimes my wife needs me to be, in a sense, her parent. And I just do. I just am in the moment. I try to be just actively present. To me, I love home. Honor, open, motivate, embrace. That's the way I try to live. That's my own thing I made up, but because it's a thing I try to live. And so I was just making a point that I agree we shouldn't have to, but I'm just saying that I try to think I want to be there if that's what she needs. Is that what she needs? Maybe she does. I just try to be there. And I do agree that I don't expect her to, and she doesn't, always, but once in a while she's there for me too, in the same kind of a genuine way that I just need a parent that, at that time.
You know what I love about talking to you, Damien?
What's that?
Everything that men should be.
Well, thank you.
Integrity, sensitivity, everything. Openness, vulnerability. You're not worried about some man code nonsense. You're not trying to impress people. You're not trying to evolve such a wonderful state of manhood. And a lot of people hearing this conversation, a bunch of whatever, that we're not tough and rough and strong, whatever. Yeah. But you epitomize everything that men, and women too, I'm not saying, but so many men that sarcastic, that humor, that one up. But I love men. Some of my best friends are guys that I'm not busting my head. But I'm saying, I appreciate it. A lot of being too sensitive, being too vulnerable. You evolved in this wonderful state of wow.
Thank you.
Evolve what you have and share it with other men. And it frees the women up too, because we show our humanity. Now, women have their own issues. I'm not saying women are perfect either. Yes. But I'm saying the male stuff, you free yourself, particularly with your background. But as you begin to be a more self-loving kind of person, you start to reward.
Exactly. And so I really wanted to, have this other talk with you. I agreed with you because I did it a lot with self-compassion. So once the kindness was given to me, I felt ugly. But what I started to do was stop saying, well, do I have to stay ugly? No. I can do something about this. I'm telling you, it gave me such hope. And that's why actually I changed my last name to AtHope. Because it's a state of being I now am and I wish for others.
You know what? That's one of the most powerfully inspiring things I've ever heard. Thank you very much. It's a gift to myself.
Thank you.
It's to the listeners. It's a gift to the world. Wow.
Thank you.
I'm very honored. And I share with everything you espouse. Kindness, love, self-compassion.
Yes.
It's not just about sitting around being peaceful and happy. It's about taking our positive energy and spreading it around, and all the good things that might come back to us. And thank you very much for this opportunity.
And I appreciate it. I'll let you go, and thank you for listeners for listening, and I hope that you got something wonderful out of this. Have a great day and love yourself.